Hello, so I'm Maciek from Trzy Plansze, and today I'm meeting with Phila Eklund, author of those and more games. Hello.
Hello, Maciek. Dzień dobry, Poland.
Okay, so I will start right into first question. Could you introduce yourself to our viewers? Who are you? What do you do?
Yes, my name is Phil Eklund. I'm a game designer. I've been designing games for 45, 47 years or so. It's just something, a passion that drives me to create these sorts of crazy things. And I've designed a Bio series, High Frontier series, and many of the Pax series games.
Okay, so how did you get involved into board games?
Well, I mean, I was from a young age into board games of various sorts, like Milton Bradley for board games for children, but I found myself always modifying the game because I wasn't satisfied with somehow. Okay. So for my friends and the like, I'd write up new rules and we'd test them. So, but from a very, very young age.
Okay, so it was like early passion for
an early passion.
Extending games and developing them, right?
It was long enough ago, Magic, that we didn't have computer games at this time.
Okay, so you partially explained how you started designing games because you started modifying the games you
yes.
had. But at some point, I know you were engineer at Raytheon, right?
Yes, I was. I was right out of the university as an aerospace engineer. I went into Hughes Aircraft Company and in the space division of that, including Hughes Research Labs. And later on, it was taken over by the Raytheon Corporation, but I continued to work on rockets, missiles, and spacecraft.
Okay, was it somehow connected to the board games, or was like you were just good at engineering and went this direction, or you just changed the path? How was it?
I was, you know, Magic as it goes. I was an engineer by day, and then as a hobby, on the weekends and evenings, I'd be doing board gaming.
Okay, so how did your engineering experience did it at all influence your game creation process?
Well, the main thing is, from a basic education point of view, is that in physics and chemistry you learn fundamental rules that run everything, run the universe and run ourselves. And so this same sort of formula as general rules that can really explain a lot was readily transferable from my engineering life to my gaming life.
Okay, so it helped you that way. So I had a question about what was first, but I assume first was the passion for board games that you started playing and modifying them. And then you became engineer because of
yes.
Sorry, because of like life necessity, and then you connected this because you have like skill in
integration,
rules,
sure,
in integration,
and then rules with reality, sure.
Moved it to the board games. So next question will be about complexity of your games. As we see here, some of them are more, some of them are less complex in
but they're generally high-end.
Yeah. How do you balance it? How to do it so that the game is still fun to play, but to keep this complexity under control, actually?
Well, I'm not terribly good at balancing fun and complexity, but when I design a game, like any of these shown here, I make a list of the elements that I think I absolutely want to have in the game. I can't make a game about the Renaissance without trade and the importance of the Silk Road and bankers. So you make a list of all the elements you have to have in, and then you try to get all these elements in as simple as possible, and then you play test it, and it fails, or they don't understand it, and you try to streamline the elements you have. I don't want to throw out anything that I deemed as absolutely essential. Sometimes I can get rid of some features if I decide it's not absolutely essential for the comprehension of the subject or to be thoroughly go into this subject. But it's just a lot of back and forth with the play testers on trying to rethink the rules or whatever, to strip it down to make it, to paraphrase Einstein, as simple as possible but not simpler.
Okay. Okay, because one of those examples is, for example, fuel track in High Frontier,
Yeah.
which is actually done, for those of you who don't know, it's tracked for measuring fuel that is left in our spacecraft, and it's a simple zigzag line of values. And it basically is very simple to use because you just slide the tracker left or right, depending on either you are burning fuel or tanking it. But on the other side, it presents quite complex idea of losing mass during the burning of fuel, actually.
Yes, that's what makes rocketry a bit complicated compared to something like cars or planes that have, where the fuel mass is a low percentage of the total vehicle mass. In rockets, especially interplanetary rockets, almost all the mass is your rocket propellant, and this is changing all the time. So you have to go to an integrated equation. You have to go to calculus, really. And so the fuel strip in High Frontier was done using the rocket equation, which means that it's measuring what kind of delta V you have as you lose mass throughout your move. And so this is a pretty advanced concept, and trying to get it onto a chart that you can, that an ordinary non-engineering student can use in the context of the game was pretty challenging, and that's kind of the breakthrough that made High Frontier a success, I think.
Yeah, because it represents complex stuff, but it's actually very simple to use. After people get grasp of how to use the track, they can easily use it in game, actually.
Yeah.
So it's quite a nice approximation of avoiding like calculating it with your PC or calculator during the game. But you can still play, but it's a really nice solution. So I was like wondering how much effort was it to simplify it to that level, to that degree of simplicity, yet without losing the what it represents.
What it represents, that's exactly right, Magic.
Okay, so what is your view on board games versus PC games? Because in nowadays world we can have like games like High Frontier or other like strategy games with much higher degree of complexity represented on PCs. And how do you view this on the topic that we still can play board games that are high complex and have this complex computer games? Is it like something in common, or maybe they are devouring each other, that there is some concurrence between players, for example, that they may prefer one or another type of the games?
Well, yeah, as you know, I've been making and selling board games for a long time, and computer games have, exploded in popularity and pretty much eclipsed in some ways the board game industry, our hobby. But the important thing is that there's still a niche for board games, for bringing people together. As you know, there's a lot of criticism on what computer games are doing to people, young people. They're putting them into their own world so they don't socially interact with others, while board games bring people together and computer games isolate them, really, hikikomori style. And so there is a place for each. Board games also are useful because everything is transparent. You have to understand the rules and the basis behind the rules in a board game. In a computer game, it's all done for you behind the scenes, and you don't really understand how or why something was modified like that, why something was simulated in that way. But you can see all this. If you're a nerd and you want to understand, then a board game is superior, really. I mean, not to Kerbal Space Program and the like. You can learn an awful lot from this. But as I say, board games are transparent. You got to understand the rules and the reasoning behind the rules to be able to use it correctly.
Okay, that's interesting because I always viewed board games as especially the social aspect of them, that you meet with other people. For example, when we play like mainly High Frontier, where I noticed that after like grinding through all of the rules, then this adventure in space, I at some point when teaching people how to play the game, I advised them to totally skip like scoring points because they were totally confused. Where should I go to score maximum number of points? And it was like, okay, before I explain you how to optimize your route, I have to explain you how everything works. And I noticed that for some people it was more fun just to know how to build a spacecraft and how to launch it.
Yes,
so
this is the thing. It's the experience is what they're after very often.
Yeah,
board games really want the experience rather than the victory.
Yeah, that it's fun, for example, to reach Uranus or some of its moons. And that's even if you don't win. And it was this social aspect, but what you mentioned is also interesting, that in board games you actually are kind of forced to understand all the rules to play it correctly, while in computer games you can skip some of them and not fully grasp the idea that was behind the
That's exactly right. That's
scenes.
Exactly right. And for a sandbox game like High Frontier, which you can do anything you want, there is pride on the part of the game just to be able to achieve something, as you said, whether or not they've actually won the game or not.
Okay, yeah, thanks. So next question will be, because as we can see here, there is kind of a wide range of topics, because we have biochemistry actually, engineering, and history. So you cover lots of topics from different ranges. How do you do it actually? How do you research that, and how do you manage to put all those totally different things in your games?
Well, I like to make games about things that I find significant, that I find important, that I find worthy. I don't like to make games on trivial things. And the origins of life and understanding the origins of life, I said, I didn't understand, I wasn't ever good at biochemistry. I took aeronautical physics, not biochemistry, but I really wanted to understand this aspect for the bio series. So I really hit the books, and I got some of the better author books on the different theories. Almost everyone has their own pet theory on how life could have gotten started. And so I try to put all the best ones into it as possibilities. But when choosing a topic, I found the exploration of space, the origins of life, and the Renaissance to be crucial periods in the development of civilization and humankind. So that's why I chose those topics. And then you've just got to be really fanatic to study everything you possibly can on them. Of course, High Frontier was my profession, so that was not so hard. High Frontier got its start when I was daydreaming in aerospace class, and I was thinking about, well, if I made a game with little numerical figures, parameters, what parameters would I choose for a performance of a rocket? Eventually, when I should have been paying attention to class, I eventually thought, oh, thrust and specific impulse. This is what we've been dealing with every day. So if I have those parameters on a card, then that should pretty much define how a rocket should behave, interplanetary rocket should behave in space. So I didn't need to do a lot of research for that, but as I said, for biogenesis, I needed a refresher or actually initiation of all the complexities of biochemistry. And Pax Renaissance, a friend of mine, really turned me on to the Renaissance and how crucial this period is in the making of the modern world. And so I really, it wasn't my first PAX game, but I really needed to do a PAX game on this time period. And I'll just mention here in Krakow, Poland, this is one of the centers of the Renaissance. I mean, the Polish Renaissance was a significant part of it. And Copernicus, of course, a hero of mine.
Okay, maybe we'll go back to this topic, let's say, at the end of our interview. I will now skip to next thing. In PAX Games, it's actually a question from Maciek, who is behind the camera, so our current cameraman, but he proposed it. It's a very good question, because in PAX you usually have to balance between freedom and necessity of what you have to do instead of what you would do if you had resources. And can be games used as tools for reflection on politics?
Yes, the question is, are politics, are games, board games specifically, a good way to learn about politics? And I believe the answer is yes. I put politics into most of my games. And Biogenesis doesn't have any politics in it,
it's
but politics is nothing more than the science of how people can get along with each other, how they can profit or productively interact with each other in a society. That's what politics means. And there are vastly differing theories on how this is to be accomplished. And High Frontier has sort of a political cruciform with a freedom axis and a left-right axis. And I've sort of used that a bit in the successors of High Frontier. Right now I'm doing a game in the High Frontier universe called Arrival. And Arrival is a game about what happens when a starship arrives at a planet, at an alien world. And well, one of the things they have to do is build a new society. If they can get a colony going, they're going to need a utopian politics that allows them to grow without, murdering each other or destroying the planet, or maybe they have to bioengineer themselves into post-humans, and how these post-humans can deal with the original settlers. Oh, there's a lot of moral questions. And what if there's already life, maybe not intelligent life, but or conscious life, but if the planet is already inhabited, even if by plants or microbes or something, what sort of moral limitations do the colonists have upon landing on this alien world? So there's, which is a political question. I would say it's a political question if the natives, indigenous life on the planet is or can be raised to some form of sentience, intelligence or the like. Then, as soon as that happens, morality starts to set in, and you need to investigate these problems, or they need to at least be addressed. And so, my upcoming game Arrival, which is still in development, we're still playtesting on TTS. I brought a copy with me here to Poland, and we playtested, and to Essen, and we playtested quite a bit of it. But this is bringing together elements from like not all, but a lot of my previous games, including, of course, politics.
Okay, since we started with topic of Arrival, some of you may know, some of you may not know, that all those games since BIOS Genesis and BIOS Trilogy can transfer to High Frontier Trilogy, because there is also Interstellar, right?
Yes.
So it's possible to start with Microbe on BIOS, first BIOS, and then go through whole history of development of species, and then go to the stars. Have you ever played whole campaign of it? Like, you know, in the stream?
I have done so up to Interstellar, or I'm still working on Arrival. And so that particular series, but just to summarize what you said, the BIOS trilogy covers the entirety of the history of life on Earth, and then High Frontier covers the expansion of life, whatever the most successful life from the first trilogy, into outer space, and then with Interstellar to other star systems, and then finally starting over again on a new world in Arrival.
Okay, because this is one of my dreams, to actually play all the games in a row, let's say. Like,
yeah. Well, next time I come to Poland, let's try it out, Magic.
Maybe. Because
Usually, what I did. Okay, Magic is Magic One behind the camera is also saying that the next time I come to Poland, what I usually did on this campaign is that we'd play one game an evening, and then go to the next game and the next evening. Okay. That's usually how the metronome of how we pace these games, so that we can get it all done in a week or so.
Okay, because this is actually problem that usually people don't have that much time, or we don't meet daily.
Of course. But maybe one day a week or something, or over a good weekend, it could be accomplished. That's the way I did it before.
Yeah. Okay, I will skip one question. I will leave it for later. So now I will.
But I did answer your question, right, Magic? Yes. About the politics.
Yes, okay. The politics was my question. Move to
Okay, so I will expand that question. Do you think that games can be used as tools for learning generally about world, as tool for education, and to show people how our world works and to experiment with it?
The answer is yes. I mean, I've taken my games to the classroom before. I've taken them even to kindergarten with Insecta, but to high school with Pax Renaissance. So it is possible. It's not a substitute for teachers teaching facts, essential facts about a subject because games are player driven, and I think teaching in general should be teacher driven. The teacher knows the important facts, but of course you're motivated as a player to understand the facts in order to master the game, and this is very helpful. And the difficulty in using games like mine is that I have to really expand the number of players that can play them, for instance, and have little teams, and the length of time is very hard to get in the classroom. So, but that's just talking about my games. Games in general do have a place in some sort of interaction between the students and the rules, and just understanding, just for the kids to understand that there are rules in the universe, and if they can understand these rules, that they can better themselves and their lives and understand what's going on. And so often in a lot of classrooms this is just not emphasized. The kids come away with the impression that, no, we humans make the rules, and therefore trying to learn laws of thermodynamics, the law of gravity, the force of gravity is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between. These sorts of things are not so important because people make the rules, but that's simply not true. We are given the rules by the nature of reality, and this is perhaps the most important fundamental thing that games in general, board games, more than computer games, board games can teach about how the universe works.
It's true.
Okay, so Maciek also is agreeing with us, so great. So, what are your favorite games?
Well, I like a lot of splatter games, but I don't play a lot of games other than my own in my spare time because I'm always trying to perfect and understand my own games.
Okay.
And I have such a backlog on the living rules of player questions and stuff but certainly it's when I'm playing, like with my wife Lee-Dan, or with my grandchildren, or it's certainly I want to find games that will resonate with the level of abilities that they have.
Okay, thanks. Do you have any tips for other designers of board and maybe computer games? How can they make games? Sorry. Do you have any tips for computer or board game designers? How can they make their games simply better, more interesting, and also more valuable?
Yeah, at Södertörn University in Stockholm, for the last 7 years, I've been teaching a course in just this subject. I teach a course to young game designers on what is important in the philosophy of designing games, and how to select subjects, how to regard what it is they're doing. I consider games, for instance, to be an art form, and any recreation of reality according to the artist's value judgments is art. And of course, recreation of reality is what simulation board games are all about. And so I teach my students to regard what they do as art, and to regard it as significant, and regard it as a reflection of how they view the world. Everybody has their own ideas about how the world works and how society works, and if they're optimistic about the future or pessimistic. and if they think humans are doing a good job or a terrible job. All these questions should be reflected in the time, and their answers, your own personal answers, should be reflected in the games that you design. And so that's sort of a brief overview of the philosophy of board game design.
Okay, thanks. It was like short but concrete. Since we are getting close to part of the interview that we were thinking for some time before we met, we prepared also today in the train some extra questions.
Okay.
Like last minute questions that maybe
last minute
maybe,
questions.
Yeah.
Oh, these are the toughest, man.
Yeah, that may be interesting. But since you mentioned that people have different views on the future of our world, what are your views actually? Given current situation in the world, are you more optimistic or more pessimistic about future?
I am optimistic. I've been optimistic throughout my life. I think humans in general, us, have the rational capacity to build a better society. I think society, civilization, and our lives has been improving. Of course, there's been ups and downs, and there's been a few notable dark periods, dark ages in general, and world wars, Krakow. You can't, the city I'm living in, I'm visiting right now, you can't even go down the street without being reminded of some of the darkest periods in human history, how badly people can treat each other when out of racism. But despite all these, I think that humans are fundamentally rational people. They have been improving the planet and their own lives, and have the capacity to spread this benevolence through the universe. Now, this controversial view, of course, not everyone thinks this. Some young people believe that it'd be better if humans went extinct tomorrow. But I think humans are a beautiful species. I don't think they've been doing as bad a job as you hear all the time.
Okay, thanks. And since we brought High Frontier here, it takes about 50 or about 80 years in the game to develop our space.
Yes.
I wouldn't say empire, but rather industry in our solar system, and prepare to leave it. How do you think how soon we will be able to move to space in that way, if at all, given the current development state and current attitude of people to surrounding world?
I have opinions on this, which I keep revising. As most everyone knows, the current limitations on getting into space is the first couple hundred kilometers. It's like 8 kilometers a second, delta V, to get to low orbit. And then a further 8 kilometers a second, you can get anywhere in the solar system. So if we could get out of this gravity well cheaply somehow, then we're halfway to the whole solar system, more or less, from one way of thinking. And low Earth orbit is, this is outer space. There's no resources there, and you've got to get a lot of water. In High Frontier, all the rocket propellant is water, as you probably know. And trying to get enough water into orbit so that you can propel your rocket to Mars or Uranus or wherever it is you want to go is a challenge. And so I think some breakthroughs on getting through this initial 8 kilometers a second delta V from the Earth to low Earth orbit. Of course, there's things like space elevators. There are also orbiting launch loops. It's possible. I've been looking into things like Zeppelins to get you to a lighter than air station at like 50 kilometers altitude or something around the Earth, whereby it's not in orbit, it's floating in the air, but this could be a spaceport, and lighter than air technology, which is still very primitive, could get you that high, and then it's not so hard to get into space from there. There's other things like electrothermal electric sleds up the sides of mountains to try to propel very robust payloads such as water for rocket propellant to space. Some of these technologies, other than liquid fuel rockets, which dominate the space right now, I think will be necessary in order to really industrialize space. I think it's premature right now, for instance, to try to go to Mars. I think until we can get a sustainable way, cheaper way to get stuff in the low Earth orbit, especially rocket propellant, then, and to answer your question in general, I think we're still 50 years from a breakthrough of this sort.
Okay, thanks for explaining what is behind this date. It's also cool that you explained the whole process of developing to this state when we will be able to reach the outer, let's say, space behind our low Earth orbit. So, next question, maybe from different topic, but like to begin to close our interview, is do you often visit Poland?
I've been here 3 times, and I've really enjoyed. Once for a game convention. I've really enjoyed each of these visits. I enjoy the people who have been very friendly to me. I was staying with a family, and it was pretty funny. The son of this family, this is in Warsaw, he's only 5, and he's just learning to speak, but he's still got all the major bodies of the solar system memorized. He can tell you in order, the Mercury, Venus, Earth, Luna, Mars, the 2 moons of Mars. He knows the Galilean satellites of Jupiter, and he knows the trans-Neptunian objects. So he complained to me, 5-year-old, complained to me, this is Framek of Warsaw, he complained to me, why doesn't the High Frontier map have Maka Maka on it? Well, yeah, I said, well, at the time, I thought the inclination was too big. But at any rate, yes, everyone's a critic, and I'm getting criticized by a 5-year-old this latest visit to Poland.
Okay. And how was in Essen? Because you visited Essen this year.
Essen, I play tested Arrival quite a bit. Also, my new game Pax Hispanica, and they were both very successful. We managed to get a lot of missions, back-to-back missions done in a day, and so I was very gratified that those are doing well. Those particular projects. Pax Hispanica is a game about the Caribbean, in the Spanish Main, so to speak, in the 17th century. And I had a vision about the different, right now the Caribbean is kind of political nightmare. It's not so great human rights, but it could have been different. And I thought, if I have a pirate game, it's marketed as a pirate game, but really it's a game about the future of the Caribbean. How some of the historical people, if they had acted differently or more forcibly or whatever, how the Caribbean could have been a lot different. It could have emancipated slavery much first in the Western society. It could have become the United States of Caribbean. It could have become its own powerhouse nation in and of itself. If it could break free from Spain. It could have been, it could, on the negative side, it could have been an anarchy, much like Escobar's Colombia or something, if you become the godfather of the Colombia. Or it could have been that all the treasures of the New World imported from the Caribbean could have launched a new mega tyrant in Europe to take over Europe and vassalize the Caribbean. So I wanted to have the characters starting out as just lowly cabin boys when they begin, but have the capacity to change the future of the Caribbean. That was the vision behind this pirate game.
Okay. Anything you would like to say to your fans in Poland?
Well, dzień dobry.
Very good.
Very good, yeah.
All right. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak about my own passion, my own hobby, magic. I greatly appreciate this in this great and troubled country that's finally independent and becoming a rich and prosperous nation, as long as, well, we won't mention any particular neighbors of Poland, but
Okay, but since you mentioned this topic, actually we also had, also by Maciek, one extra question. And it's about, do you plan any game, or would you consider making any game about Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth?
well, as you know, it's one of the empires in Pax Renaissance, as you all already know. But I am a great admirer of the Commonwealth. I think it had the capacity for greatness during the Renaissance period, and I don't know an enormous amount about it, but I certainly would like to have what-if scenarios that would have made Poland robust enough so when it get invaded every other day by Russia and Sweden and Prussia and everyone in the world wants to use this as their fertile stomping grounds. I mean, it's just not. It could have been different, perhaps. So yes, I would consider this.
Okay, so maybe one day we will meet, like testing new prototype of this game about our countries when they were joined some time ago. And
Golden Liberty. Yes.
Yeah. So there is also, but it's like totally bonus question at the end. Recently on Steam, High Frontier not online, but High Frontier PC version was published.
Yes.
Were you anyway involved in the production of it? Because I waited for it. It got actually negative reviews from the users, but I'm not sure if you are the right person actually to ask about this game, because I don't know if you were involved in the process of
Well, I
creating
was
it.
involved in as much as the programmers came to me and said, well, what was the idea behind this rule? What can we do for factory-assisted takeoff? And so I did a lot of technical question answering on little programming problems that you have. Some of them are just problems you always have translating a board game into a computer game with a sequence of play and things like that. But others were just details on how the programming is supposed to work. But go ahead. I mean, I can at least transfer questions or problems or comments to the programming team that I'm able to, that I still am in contact with.
Okay, because personally I still didn't have played, because when I read the first comments and my friend also checked on it, I decided to wait until it's updated, since I have like lots of gaming backlog of my both PC and board games. But one of the problems was this new fuel system in game, which was actually more realistic than the board game one.
Okay.
But some people claim that it's actually not very good, because it's different from actual board game that they expected on the to actually experience board game, but on PC, for example, for training. I also intended to use the PC version to, for example, quickly test or train some scenarios from board game before I explain it to people.
I had that same idea myself for development of testing of new scenarios and like, to use the computer version. To answer your question, I don't know. I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
I didn't know that they had changed the fuel strip significantly. There were, at the very low end of the fuel strip, there's some jogs. I mean, it's because of the mass scale used in the game. When you get to the very lightweight spacecraft, there are, it's hard to explain, but there are some real jumps in performance depending on the assumptions you use of the average mass of the spacecraft. It's very sensitive to these, and I think that may have influenced, I'm not sure, but I'm guessing the complaints are coming in on the very lightweight rockets, such as sails and the like. But I'm not sure about this. I probably shouldn't say much more.
Okay, so I think when I test it one day, and I hope we will meet someday again, maybe we will just go back to this discussion and
yes,
develop
of course.
on the topic. So Phil, thank you very much for finding time for us and explaining kind of complex ideas in, as you mentioned, not simple, but not simplistic, but simple way, so that it can be understandable.
Simple as possible, but not simpler.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
And I hope we meet again someday, maybe playing some board games.
We are waiting for you in Poland. Next time we try to play together. Okay?
Yes. I would like to do that. All right.